Hello, and welcome to the Jolly Heretic election special. Now, the diehards at the Jolly Heretic Public House may recall that, why is there no number on the screen saying, oh, here we go, may recall that in 2019 I was sitting here with Michael Woodley of Manee, and we were terribly excited because the Conservative Party had got, it was predicted to get 86 seats. It got 80-seat majority. I was thinking, that's it. We can overturn all of this Labour restrictions on freedom, constitutional tinkering, mass immigration, and of course, they've done nothing. They've done absolutely nothing in 14 years, or certainly in the period they've had a large majority. So I know what I'm hoping happens tonight. And so hello, everybody, and cheers, and welcome to the Jolly Heretic. We are, of course, online public house, which meets on Mondays at 7 p.m. UK time. But this extraordinary occasion, we're meeting on a Thursday because apparently it's going to be a dramatic election night. We thought we'd talk about that. Like, having my good friend, he's been off. He's been on paternity leave.
Yes.
Charlie Veitch. Charlie, how's it going?
It's going very well. I'm reporting from the very sunny climes, quite cold climes of Lancashire in northwest England. I've been on the ground both in Lancashire and also in central Manchester, gauging the public feeling out there, the kind of zeitgeisty election mood. Completely different, as you say, from 5 years ago. It's going to be a funny one, and I'm daring to dream. I'm daring to dream tonight. You know, I've already voted, of course, and I'm daring to dream we might have a big upset that could create coalitions and strange things happening. So it's very exciting.
If you don't mind my asking, Mr. Veitch, for whom did you cast your ballot, or is that between you and the ballot box?
No, I don't mind saying I've been very publicly endorsing reform for the last few weeks, and a big black X in the reform box.
Tony Blair abolished my right to vote. He brought in this idea that if you've been abroad 15 years, you can't vote. But they brought it back again, and so I was able to vote this time, and I instructed my father, who is my proxy, to put a big black X in the reform box as well. Yeah. So only in so much as I was toying with the Workers' Party because I didn't like the way that the Reform Party cuck on and do things that the Hope Not Hate say. Like they say, oh, we found someone and they're still at the same address and they're on the BNP membership list, or we found someone and they said something rude or whatever. I don't like that. But I think I was going to go for it today. So I voted for reform as well. So cheers, everybody. Cheers, Charlie. Cheers, Patricia Blanford. I love you too. Cheers, Bill Wexler. Happy trade today from the US, he says. Oh, yes, good point. Yes, that as well. Yes, happy independent, happy waste. Yes.
Before we begin, I just want to introduce everyone, all my viewers, all your viewers, to my son, Ralph. He's a bit sleepy, but he's a big boy. He's a big, fat, healthy boy. Hello, everyone. Say hello to Ralph.
Hello, Ralph.
Yeah, look at that. He's like Baby Yoda having a great time, but he's a good boy. So very happy. Yeah, he's already got a bit more hair than me. He's doing well.
Well, he's a fair bit younger than you. But much less testosterone. So cheers, Ralph, to Ralph's health. Let us toast the baby's head, the baby election baby at the Jolly Heretic Public House. Yes, happy trade today to those in the US. Not going well for you, is it really? I mean, your president is manifestly senile, and he's going to have to give way to somebody who was only appointed because they were black and because they were a woman.
Yes.
And so I don't think that's doing that well. But anyway, cheers, everybody. Cheers. Hurrigan Gulligan, Capis, Saludo, Slanger var, Prost, Proust, Zvotche, whatever it is in Russian. I can't remember. I've just got back from Bulgaria. Not amazingly interesting country, I have to say, but Albania was more interesting. But it was hot. It was hot and it was cheap. Food was about half the price, which was of here, which was good. So cheers to Bulgaria, and welcome to the Jolly Heretic. Who's the toff? Lol, says Kieran. Is this a reference to Charlie, private school and all that? Yeah, I suppose so. Charlie Veitch. Anyway, good. So what's your feeling on the ground then, Charlie? I live abroad and I've not been to England for months. And what have you been noticing around Manchester? And what's the feeling?
The feeling is like what I've been seeing, like not just with normies, not just with my elderly relatives and the kind of people I know through them. I'm sensing a kind of almost strong energy like we saw in Trump 2016, people rushing towards the polls, you know, like attacking the polling booths, like the Mongols were like raiding Baghdad. they're going hard for reform, and everyone I speak to, Ed, is voting for reform, quite publicly doing so. And I think there's a massive normie grouping out there who are telling the pollsters that they're voting for Labour because that's the automatic things to say, you know, that their parents, their grandparents voted for Labour. But I think when it comes down to it, they'll feel that kind of resurgence, that kind of populism that Farage has been spreading over the last 4 or 5 weeks. And I think we might actually get more than 13 seats for reform, which has been the latest poll I've seen.
Do you think that could also happen in the exit poll? I mean, by the way, we'll be watching the exit poll when it comes out on here. But with the exit poll, of course, they used to do it that they would ask you directly, what did you vote for? And now they ask you to basically repeat your vote. And so do you think that the exit poll could downplay their support as well?
Well, I don't know. I think by the time it's done, by the time people have fired their bullet into the ballot box, I think they might be more honest. And in this country, I think exit polls are considered extremely accurate. You know, for about the last 20, 30 years, exit polls have pretty much nailed it every single time. And so, but this time, because there's so many different parties at play, there's the whole Muslim vote with Gaza, which might kind of give a big upset for the Greens and the Liberal Democrats, you know, and also for these independent candidates. And it's important to state for the international audience as well that in Britain, we don't have proportional representation elections. It's not the case that if Reform Party gets 20%, they'll get 20% of the seats. We, in effect, and Edward, you know this, of course, we have 650 independent elections. It's almost like 650 countries having their own little elections, and that's first past the post. And so that's, I guess, historically designed to stop, you know, crazy parties getting too much power. But I think we're going to see that if we have a Labour supermajority, people are going to for a change in this voting system. But I think we're going to see about 50 seats for reform. I think there's going to be a kind of like
I think that might be a tad optimistic. I think come on.
I got to dare to dream it.
I can say there is something about a feeling on the ground, and I would say that. So 9 years ago, I happened to be in the UK at the time of the 2015 election, and I was at that time I was canvassing for the Conservative Party, for the local Conservative Party, because years ago when I was a teenager, I was involved in it. I still have friends who are very elderly now that are involved in it. So I was canvassing, and the people were coming up to me. I had blue rosette on, you know, and were coming up to me and saying, "Oh, yeah, I voted for you. Yeah, oh yeah, well, I hope you win," you know. And this happened quite a few times, and there was this real positive feeling from people, members of the public, exactly the opposite of what I used to get, of course, when they lost, when I was canvassing when I was younger in '97, or 2001. You just knew the feeling was it was going to be disastrous. Whereas with this, there was this feeling, and so the exit poll in 2015 said that it was going to be a hung parliament, and there was something in oh George, I've got to get this thing fixed, and there was something in me which said no, it's not. Why does it do
just
that?
ignore it, just carry on, just talk over it.
It's like some sort of loose connection,
a loose wire.
I don't know what I should unplug. It is a loose wire, but I say if I so much as move, it shakes it. I'm gonna talk at them. Look, it's this thing here. If anyone knows anything, if I unplug the printer, this device is the cause of my woes.
You know, your tech woes are an integral part of the show, so I enjoy them.
It's true. Over many years, people have talked about it being a boomer tech. I learned when I set up the channel in 2019, I learned these new terms like based and trad thought and boomer tech. And there's been over the last 6 years that I've been doing the Jolly Heretic, there have been, it must be said, a lot of boomer tech issues on the Jolly Heretic. For example, one time when I was interviewing Nick Fuentes, my internet completely went out for about 10 minutes, and he just had to talk at them while I was messing around. And then another time I was interviewing this based bishop, and the same thing happened. So there's been a lot of, and I've also forgotten to sign into Entropy, and doing so is quite complicated.
They do quite a lot with me, actually. You forget to sign into Entropy. That's another.
Do. That's another part of it. Yeah, to forget to sign into the old Entropy. I've realised that to do so is quite complicated when I'm going upstairs and getting my phone. I don't tend to do that. So hopefully we'll be all right. So what my feeling is also that the Conservative Party has somehow lost its soul. And I was thinking about this. I was thinking about it in terms of almost like autism, that autistic people, they don't know, they watch other people being socially successful and they're not socially successful, and so they think, well, what can I do? And they imitate them. And it's as though the shock of the 97 loss involved watching this change in the country towards Blairite, blur Brit pop shit crap. And thinking, well, this is not us. This is not how we feel, but this is what makes us popular. So what we'll have to do is, even though it doesn't feel right and it's not kind of how we feel we are, it's not our identity, it's not us, we'll have to imitate that. We'll have to imitate that in order to get friends. We'll have to engage basically in masking, which is what autistics do. And so they and if you engage in this masking and you do things that your instincts telling you not to do, then eventually you almost, it's exhausting and you lose a sense of who you are, and you don't know what to do. Why has the light just gone on in my room?
Yeah, like for me, as we have a darkness with Ed, it's the appeasement that I've seen the Conservative Party do for the kind of left-wing ideologues. We've seen thing after thing, from a drag queen story hour to the kind of allowance of LGBTQX, the kind of S equals UT plus half AT squared LGBTs. We've had a lot of cultural changes that the kind of conservatives, just like with the Islamism problem, they just kind of appease it and just sweep it under the rug. Yeah, let all the let boys into girls' changing rooms at school, no problem. And
they engage in that appeasement, Charlie, right from the beginning. Like the moment Labour won the election in '97, it was this idea, not that the country has gone a bit mad, which it had done. And that was evidenced a few months later in their reaction to Princess Diana dying. Like something serious has gone wrong with people's emotional control and their ability to work things out and whatever. And we should fight against that and get back into power on our own terms. It was to imitate the enemy. It was to be like them, like an autistic would do, in order to become popular, which is exhausting, which is unnatural, which comes across as false. And you end up eventually not knowing who you are anymore, and you end up aimless and with no sense, almost like in an abusive relationship with a narcissist. You're constantly trying to appease that person in order to get positive feedback, and you'll never fully get the positive feedback. And then when you get out of the relationship, which they got out of by getting power back, then they just don't know what to do. And I find it amazing that in 14 years of Conservative government, they've done worse than nothing. I mean, think what life was like under Tony Blair. It was the lads, mate. It was hard. It was GQ. It was drinking and Nuts magazine and having a right laugh. And it was men were men and women were women compared to now.
I know. I remember the optimism of the .com explosion in the Blairite years. The kind of the internet and everything, and partying and Ibiza and British bands and that. Now look at us. I think I like how you called them autistic. And how they like patterns. They like safe patterns, and then they overplayed the resilience of their patterns, and they allowed the appeasement of all the left-wing ideologies, and then it crept in, and then they were too scared to confront it, and then they thought, it's okay, people will keep voting for us, we're the conservatives, we're the stable party. Look, Rishi Sunak, he gave you lots of free money during lockdown, you got your furlough, you got your money, and they thought that it would go. But the main thing now, Ed, is you call it the decadence crisis. People are struggling with the cost of living, the cost of decadence. They're not cooking their meals, they're buying takeaways, as you say. But this is, I think, why we're seeing people wanting to vote for Labour. They want free stuff, Edward. They want the freebies that they think Labour are going to give them, because things are expensive now, because they still get the Chinese takeaways. So
exactly, things are expensive. I can't tell. With regard to the autism, the lack of direction as well. When you break away from something like this, according to Richard Grannon and such like, and when you have a lack of direction, you're exhausted, then you get into power, it's almost like you're exhausted, and so you don't really want to do anything. You're depressed, and you don't have the energy to do anything. And it seems to me that they could have reversed all of the horrible things that Tony Blair and Brown's government brought in. They could have done, but they didn't. Once they fought through the coalition and finally under Boris had some power, and finally got Brexit through as well, which made it even worse because that was exhausting. then they were just as a party, they were just exhausted, and then COVID comes, and then that's it. They're just total. You've got this identity crisis. I mean, also in terms of the identity crisis as well. I don't mean to say that there aren't perfectly good Asian or black members of parliament, but one of the things that they obviously did was they deliberately promoted people to safe seats, like Kemi Badenoch in Saffron Walden and Suella Braverman in Fareham, is it, or Andover, who were ethnic minorities, and so those are the people that will keep their seats, and it's in their, rather than native British people, and it's in their interests, of course, to some extent, to support multiculturalism and immigration, no matter what they say, because that's why they're here. So that's another part of the crisis of the Conservative Party, where the no campaign on behalf of white working class people at all. The result was that first they went to the BNP, then they went to UKIP, and now I suppose it seems to me that Farage is, I don't know whether it's perhaps unconscious, but by standing in Clacton, I mean, I've been to Clacton, it's basically 99% white.
Yeah.
And they're taking the wokeness back in. You're noticing this on commercials. You're seeing white people on political commercials, and I couldn't believe it the other day when I saw even Keir Starmer's Labour's commercials. All these white people. I haven't seen white people on commercials for about a decade. And suddenly
15 years, and like all the Labour candidates around here in Lancashire, they've all got union flags, all kind of like patriotic British imagery. Like Labour are trying to get that vote. And you mentioned COVID as like maybe one of the last few crises that exhausted the Conservative Party. And I think for a lot of Middle England, a lot of middle class voters, they'll remember not being allowed to visit their elderly relatives who are being kept in zoo conditions by like COVID commissars with the face mask, the nurses. All the while, Matt Hancock was snogging that woman behind his wife's back, and getting caught. And also Boris Johnson.
That woman, though, she was more fit than his wife, though.
Oh no!
His wife Martha, she was
wrong. No, I'm not going to join. She's horrible. They're all horrible. There's no comeback from that. He has 3 kids at home and a wife there, and he's there snogging. And then Boris Johnson as well with his cocktail party while everyone wasn't allowed to like come close to each other. That was another one.
All I'd say is, if we want to understand Boris and what he's going through, look at some of the stuff that Carrie Johnson has been tweeting out recently. That's all I'd say about that. I'll say no more. But we all know what's going on there. But anyway, it was also very interesting that the left wing commentariat have said that you shouldn't. Oh God, Boris! Why is he getting Boris involved in the campaign? Boris is the one that lied over Partygate. Nobody cares about that. Everybody told anybody that didn't bend the rules during that insanity should be ashamed of themselves, frankly.
I agree.
Boris came up and they were going, Boris. I'm like, he's still popular among the activists and among the people. People don't care that he lies. Everyone lies.
Yeah.
And they like him. And if they hadn't got rid of him over some cake and over a person who they know if you're a charismatic type, you're low in impulse control, you're not going to stick to the rules, are you? And he didn't want to bring in these rules. It was all people telling him, bring in the rules or all the old ladies will die. It would be completely against his instincts to do anything like lockdown. He was obviously sort of.
Well, I was watching a political debate today. I can't remember. I think it might have even been Jordan Peterson talking to Nigel Farage. Yeah, that was an interesting crossover I didn't expect. Peterson and Farage on YouTube. And they were saying that Boris Johnson brought in the kind of zero emissions, the kind of climate, green, insanity bullshit laws, zero emission laws for like 2028, just to impress his young wife, Carrie, So he is controlled by young...
yeah, he thinks with his cock. Yeah, I mean that we can't deny. He thinks with his cock. He's on his 3rd marriage. He's had a number of affairs. He's got illegitimate children. I don't think he even knows how many children he has. He thinks with his cock. On the plus side, he's charismatic. Yeah. And makes a cold world feel warm again. And so does Nigel Farage. And I don't know to what extent he thinks with his cock. But I read his memoir recently. And it's quite sensitive, actually, talking about how he had cancer of the balls. And he's always very, very worried about it. He was 21. Imagine that, 21. And
who did? Boris or Farage?
Farage
had cancer of the balls at 21.
21, yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. Poor guy.
Horrible. And imagine the trauma of that, and sort of getting over that. And my internet's gone down. My son's probably playing Minecraft or something. But bear with me. And so yeah, and so he's suffered. He's suffered. And so he's all the better for it, I think. And I don't know how genuine he is, though. I mean, like, is he genuine? That's the question. I mean, he said that he's been offered peerages and offered things to basically stand down and back out of things, and he hasn't done so. So well, it is possible. I know that being a senior politician is, of course, associated with narcissism and all that stuff, and I'm sure he must be high in those things. But what do you think, Charlie? Do you think he is genuine?
He is sincere. I think, I mean, he's obviously a politician. He's very charismatic and smart. Nigel Farage, of course, we're talking about. But imagine knowing that you are potentially the great white hope for Great Britain. You are the kind of St. George gonna kill the dragon of wokeism, and there's a lot of people putting a lot of hope into him. And I hope he's enjoying that position. I hope he's enjoying the kind of energy it gives him, and I think it is sincere. It's a self-referential thing where people put the energy in him, and he enjoys it and puts it back, and so it should be. I believe he is genuine. I mean, when he's out drinking pints, wearing his tweed jacket, he doesn't look like he's acting. That's who he is.
Well, yeah, you say that, but then on the other hand, I mean, Boris presumably comes across as in a very similar way, and he provided a very similar purpose, but then he sort of fagged around really for his time in office and didn't really achieve anything at all. So it is slightly concerning that someone like Farage might do, once he actually gets real power and he's not an outsider anymore screaming in, and he actually has to see the chaos and hell that New Labour have set up. Then how easy will it be? I mean, if you've read Liz Truss's memoir, that's what people have a go at Liz Truss, and I think they shouldn't. I think she is obviously autistic as fuck, but she got in and she basically realised that she couldn't do anything, and that the whole of the civil service was taken over by wokery. And
all seized up around her. It seized up. No one would do anything, and they changed all the interest rates just to mess it all up for her. Yeah, it all got.
And that was another thing that they made that Labour made the Bank of England independent, which basically means that the Bank of England controls the government rather than the government controlling the Bank of England. So you've suddenly got this outsourcing of power from the idea that Parliament is sovereign. And if Parliament is sovereign, the government is basically sovereign. And then the government should control the Bank of England, to all of these, like the Supreme Court. This is a court above Parliament telling Parliament what it can do. So Parliament's not sovereign. And if Parliament's not sovereign, then the voter is not sovereign. The voter is no longer able to get through what he wants, even in theory, because there's something above Parliament, i.e., this unelected quango, the Supreme Court, that is telling Parliament what to do based on certain external rules, such as the Human Rights Act, which Parliament has imposed upon itself. So they're tinkering with the Constitution has serious consequences in that it basically binds your hands. You as a government, short of something massive, which you've got to have serious effort to do, to come in and say, right, governments don't tend to like to come in and just undo everything the previous government has done. Like Cromwell, like after Cromwell, they had an act of oblivion where they abolished every single law that had been passed under Cromwell. But I think they should have done that. But then we'd have to admit as a people how we were manipulated, or how stupid we were to vote in New Labour, and what a terrible thing that was, and what an appalling time that was. And I don't think people are ready to admit what twats they were in that. I bet you voted Labour when you were young, didn't you, Charlie?
No. I voted Tory since I was 18.
Good boy. Because I know many people. I mean, even a girl I interviewed on the channel recently. The video is not out yet. A very intelligent young girl. And she was 2019. She was campaigning for Starmer, for Corbyn. She was all out there, Now she's realised the error of her youthful ways when she was 16. So I think that this is.
You touched upon like the Supreme Court and the Bank of England being above the power of government and Parliament, and how the common voter doesn't have access to change things at the highest level. But to play devil's advocate, the financial system would argue back and say that the kind of long-term stability of the nation as a financial system, with the property and commercial property and pensions and, the kind of welfare state is so important to maintain a stability so that Britain has its kind of strong credit rating, so it can like compete on the global level financially. That we can't let your average Baza and potential left-wing Doris, come in and affect the system like that. So I'm thinking we're approaching the limits of democracy in this country. It's too diverse. There's too many different ethnicities that have their own political ethnic groups. There's too much woke propaganda making sure that the people who are minorities blame the native white population. And I think if we don't get a big reform upset in this election, Ed, I think we're maybe one election away from we're having to have a military takeover like Egypt had when the Muslim Brotherhood took over.
This is a very good point. Multi-ethnicity is not, first of all, is not consistent with democracy, because ethnic groups will vote in their own interests rather than in the interests of the nation, and they don't tend to trust each other across the group boundaries, and so this is what they had in. Someone's just put in the chat, I voted DUP. Well, what you had in Northern Ireland under people like in the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, when Northern Ireland had its own parliament back then, was really a sort of Protestant equivalent of what you had in the Deep South, really. The Catholics, second-class citizens. You had gerrymandering to ensure that they couldn't get in control of anything, even places that were quite Catholic. And this was to hold the nation. This was to hold the divided nation together. To hold a divided nation together, one of the two groups was suppressed, and that was the Catholics. And then eventually it devolved into just fighting and whatever, and then literally the takeover of the nation, the abolition of Stormont, and direct rule from London. That's what happened. And so similarly with Britain, I think you can see a way that the trust is very low. There's polarization. There was Eric Kaufmann just published something on how the younger people in France, the people that are under 25 or whatever, are the most woke, but they're also the most left-wing voting, but they're also they're concomitantly the most polarized. So they are the most likely to vote for the far left and for the Front National. And that may well be. There is some evidence, at least among men, that that's the case in the UK. Young men will vote reform.
Yeah, and as you see in France and the polarization, I see it amongst young people like Zoomers in Britain. But the left wing are basically saying to the right wing, "Don't you dare go full Hitler," and the right wing are saying to the left wing, "Don't you dare go full Stalin." And there is this worry that the kind of big, obviously failed grand narratives of the 20th century are going to rear their ugly head. And in terms of kind of civil war breaking out as well, just to kind of raise a slightly interesting topic. The way I see it breaking out, Ed, is as the conflict in Israel and Gaza spreads into Lebanon and Iran, and the left-wing propaganda will give us nothing but 24-hour-a-day dead Arab babies or suffering Arab children. And we're going to see, I think, Islamist groups connecting with hard left Antifa types, and they're going to do a kind of, those community zone that the Antifa do in America, where they take over the Chad or something, that kind of, where they take over a city center and set up roadblocks and burning tires, and the autonomous zone, the kind of central autonomous zone,
like in Seattle. Yes.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that in places like Blackburn and Burnley and Bolton and Bradford. We're going to see autonomous left-wing Islamist zones, and that'll be a big challenge to the government.
Northern Irelandization, because you already have that basic. I don't know to what extent, but you certainly used to. Like Kenneth Clark in his memoir talks about how when he went in the 70s, and he was a junior minister in the Northern Ireland office, to Londonderry, and they went into Free Derry, as it's known. It was made quite clear to them that the British government, are not in charge here. The IRA are in charge here. And as a minister of the British government, he had to go in, he had to negotiate to get in, and to talk to this protection racket. I mean, let's face it, they keep the law and order in the area. They'll, if you mess around and steal and stuff, they'll shoot your fucking kneecaps off. But that's what he had to do. It wasn't under the control of the British government. And increasingly, you have that in Muslim communities, in that they practice polygamy, and it's just overlooked, it's accepted, and they have it's just their own world, basically, like the East End, in the 50s, where you don't go to the authorities, you don't grass, you go to the Crays or the Richardsons. and
Yeah.
they're the people that are in charge. So I think I think it's perfectly possible that it's probably already happened. I mean, there's probably parts of Britain that are like that anyway, and everyone knows that.
Yeah.
That council estates, whatever. You don't parts of Glasgow where you don't mess around. And so you would see more of that. But the point about what you were saying about the military coup, yeah, exactly. Well, that's what happens in these countries that become diverse, that become polarized. Eventually, there's chaos. Everything grinds to a halt. Nothing works, and and economically, then you have problems, and then you get a coup. And as we all know, there was genuine discussion in the late 60s when the pound was devalued by Harold Wilson of a coup, and that they were going to put Lord Mountbatten in. As a sort of savior of the nation, to just take over, to stop what Labour were doing to the economy, because people were seriously losing their money. I don't know if we're there yet, but tonight should be an interesting marker of how people feel, because if there are unpredictable results, like Brexit, all the polls said, if we'd been having a live stream then, the vote will be to stay in the European Union. But then there was this upset. How much are we accounting for weird votes in Muslim areas? For people,
this is what I was just going to say. Like, if there are more independent Muslim candidates running on a Gaza ticket elected to the House of Parliament than reform candidates, it's going to be a very sad day for this country. Can you imagine that? There's more independent Muslim candidates on a Gaza ticket than there are reform candidates elected to the House. It'd be crazy.
It certainly has the potential to split the Labour vote in unusual ways, and to lead to unpredictable results. But it's what you get if you commit the treason of bringing in vast numbers of people with a completely different, who are just totally different in their worldview, in their genetics, in every respect. Then you can't have a full democracy, and that's why Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, you have this multi-ethnic state, three ethnic groups, or about three ethnic groups, and so you have this very controlled democracy where certain things can't be discussed, where ethnic parties in Singapore are banned, and where it's a limited democracy, and that's what you end up with in a state like that, and that's what this is going to bring about. Because if you don't have that, then you're just going to have what you already have in Holland. Muslim party in Parliament, and so it's going to be reform got our vote. So the general feeling I take it among the crew in the old chat at the Jolly Heretic is that reform is someone with a Finnish name that's just gone by has said that reform is too tied to personality. What do you think about that idea, Charlie? That it's a personality cult, like Lis Pim came second, I think it was, in the Dutch election in 2002, after their leader, Pim Fortuyn, had been assassinated. And these people were all useless. I mean, they were just people that had no experience, no abilities, that Pim Fortuyn had just put on there. In the absence of their charismatic leader, they couldn't really do anything. I mean, what is the Reform Party without Farage? What was UKIP without Farage?
Yeah, well, I think for this election, as obviously, well, I don't want to say obviously, why say horrible things, but he's probably not going to become prime minister. Reform are probably not going to win a majority in the House of Commons. And so I'm happy for it to be a one-man personality cult for now, as a protest vote against wokeism and globalism and the absolute evisceration of British culture into a kind of overly socialized left-wing satanic mess. So for this election, fine, no problem. It is a one-man band. I like how the leader of Reform before Farage graciously stepped aside. He knew he didn't have the charisma. No one knew who he was. And everyone loves Farage because he got Brexit done. But I'll tell you what the kind of strange memory I have is that we voted for Brexit so that Britain could become a bit more British and great. And it became 10 times worse, in the kind of almost decade since Brexit. It's a lot worse. And so we've replaced, a fine Catholic, Polish, hardworking tradesman for mass immigration from the third world. It's crazy.
And Indians. I mean, it is extraordinary. I mean, and also, I mean, from the perspective of evolutionary psychology, I'm sorry if some twat watching will say this is racist. I'm not being racist. I'm just talking facts here. People will react. People who are of a particular who are white, let's say, will react to a stranger of the same group as them, they don't regard that as a problem. But a stranger of a different group, it triggers their amygdala. It triggers the most primitive part of the brain. And that's a fact. And so people will literally be more comfortable, I suspect, with Polish people and Lithuanians and whatever, than with people from the third world. This is just a fact. And so what you've done is you've given, it's quite obvious what people voted for. They voted for the fact that people that are English like being with other English people. That is what they like. And or whatever, and that's what they wanted. And what you've done is you've got this Brexit, and you've said, okay, yeah, we're gonna, and then you bring in. I mean, if you go to let's say Heathrow Airport now, everybody is they're Indian. I don't mean British Indian. I don't mean people that are born here. I mean or people whose parents were born here, but who are of Indian ethnicity. I mean literally Indian. And that people don't like. Can you just talk at them for a sec while I check my phone so I can sign into Entropy? We're back in a sec.
No, absolutely. And a big sign that too many people have arrived within too short a time is that, when I grew up in the 80s watching American movies, I totally accepted African Americans as absolute normal citizens of America because they spoke with an American accent. Watching Lethal Weapon with Danny Glover. And Mel Gibson, obviously Australian, but he was putting on an American accent. But, we grew up accepting multi-ethnicity as long as people all had the same culture. And, you can be American, you can be black, you can be Indian. And funnily enough, Indian Americans actually have the highest average earnings of all ethnicities in America. That's just me ranting away. But coming back to Britain, the way you can tell that you're importing far too many immigrants in a short period of time is that in an area like Peckham in London or Bradford in West Yorkshire, the British accent doesn't spread into the communities quickly enough. And you get very strange accents like the Pakistani Yorkshire accent or the Ghanaian Peckham accent in London. It's very strange. It's
changing the accent of white people as well. So I was in Holland Park, and there was this guy, and he reckoned he was from Lewisham. And he talked like he was Jamaican. I was like, "What on earth are you talking about, you silly little man?" I said, "Where are you from?" From Luton, innit? I was like, "What the hell? Why are you talking like that? Why do you talk like that? Why do you talk normally? Why do you talk like a traditional South London person? But you don't because you're. We know what's happening."
They're mimicking the preference of young inner city feral white girls for strongly melanated genetics from the third world, for strong feral genetics. And so the native beta white male mimics the kind of hair with the perm on the kind of zoomer broccoli head. He mimics the
invader, the person that is in charge, the person that's won the battle. And so you mimic the person that has higher status. And in these kinds of situations, that is the person whose culture is dominant, the person who is brave, the person who is who knows who they are and gets on with it. And that's not true with white people because their culture has been questioned by themselves, by their own spiteful mutant members, and so they just feel weak and they feel feeble and they feel invaded. And so, of course, there's a degree to which the women engage in collaboration horizontal. Women look up to the invader. If the German manages to invade the Channel Islands, then of course the women want to have sex with the German. If American GIs turn up to rescue Britain, then of course American GIs are attractive, not putting aside the fact that they were probably taller in those days than English people have better teeth. So this is it. Yeah. I'm going to turn, Charlie, to some of the questions.
Young women don't want neurotic sperm. Like, as you say, white people questioning themselves, blaming themselves. We teach 8-year-old English children that they're responsible for slavery, for colonialism, for George Floyd himself. We teach 8-year-old kids that their whiteness is that knee on George Floyd's neck. So no wonder young white men are neurotic.
Indeed, and it wasn't, as we all know, it wasn't that killed him anyway. It was the fact that he was high on drugs. But there had to be a sacrifice. There had to be a biblical scapegoat in the form of this, not very pleasant man. He did himself no
Yeah.
favors once we look into his history and whatever.
Yeah.
But he was just doing his job, and he was doing what he was told to do, and then he's going to spend the rest of his life realistically in prison as a sacrifice for people's guilt over race. I'm going to turn to some of the questions that have been sent in. Comments rather. So first of all, we have from Goth Bureaucrat, and he says, "Where do your full videos go? I can't find them." This for me. This stream will go on Charlie's channel, Charlie Veitch, and it will also go on Odyssey. So that's where that goes, and then the other ones just go on my channel. It's the streams I take down. L. Taylor says, "Me, my wife, my £5. Me, my wife, and her boyfriend are voting Labour." And then he does a sort of flicks the a keskari, as we say in Finland. Well, why? Why are you voting Labour? Do you want to destroy your country? What's the logic?
He wants Angela Rayner to be the deputy prime minister. He wants that beautiful Rayner, large gummed, big toothed energy to
You want that fake tit energy?
Yeah.
Is that what you want? When I was in Bulgaria, there was this woman, I couldn't believe it. Like the lips, the fakeness of the lips, it was amazing. Me and my daughter laughed and
impressed. Yeah. Were you impressed by just how fake it was? Or
I was impressed by the audacity of the fakeness, that it was so conspicuous and fake. Like, what is the point of getting fake tits or fake lips or whatever if they obviously look fake?
It's a celebration of the artifice as a show of status, because obviously you need to be rich to afford that shit.
Well, you don't need to be rich to afford a bad lip job.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe doing it on purpose. It's kind of like, look at my plastic surgery excess. It's like a kind of art on my face.
Like an honesty signal of genetic quality. So it's like, I'm going to make myself look disgusting and ugly, and I'm still pretty. Like
many of the viewers watching will know, like, if you get bogged, you've been Bogdanov. So if you know the Bogdanov twins, that if you need a quick rundown on the Bogdanov twins, they're French rulers of the universe, and they're French musicians who slowly gave themselves big implants and a giant Giga Chad jaw. And like, to get bogged is to kind of make your face really grotesque. But his skull is massive, like as you'd imagine, maybe the leader of all the Neanderthal clans, this big skulled alpha male. That's what they've turned themselves into. And it's grotesque, but quite alluring. I would actually bow to their dominance if they entered the room, because from a very primal kind of animalistic primate level, I'd have to respect the skull. So that's why they do it. So
again, I see. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. But also, yeah. So it's striking fear into you. It's like a wasp in yellow and black. It's aposematism, making yourself ugly to make people frightened of you, which I assume
a poison dart frog. Yeah, like poison dart frog energy, bright blue and green and stuff like that.
One thing I was thinking was, are women who are otherwise fit and young rendered more fit by a couple of white hairs? So some white hairs, because it's saying aging quickly. And so they're probably fast life history strategists and are up for a bit of.
Oh, is the internet gone down? Oh no, you've stopped. Are you still there? I think I've lost Ed, or he's lost me.
The internet went off. It keeps happening during live streams. I don't understand why.
I'm just going to turn my light on. I'm just going to turn my light on.
All right. Okay.
1 second, Ed. Because now I think I'll be in a bit better color and rendition. I think, there you go.
I think if a woman controlling for everything else has some white hair, some grey hair, is that attractive because it indicates she's a fast life history strategist or something like that?
Well, if you're a kind of carling swigging baza, in a kind of cheap revolution nightclub on the streets of Skegness, maybe. But I don't see signs, like visible signs of aging and graying and being closer to the grave. I wouldn't find that attractive. I think youth is always attractive.
I just wondered if it was a possibility. I'm just gonna unplug something and plug it in again. Right, plug in. Come on, I want to hear the. Oh man, I've got to get.
Hey, Mad Manny's in the house. Hello, thank you very much. And I did vote today for reform. You guys probably saw Mad Manny's footage going round of a kind of a strong-backed Congolese gentleman in Piccadilly Gardens having a spit hood placed over his head by the police as he's getting hogtied and removed for enriching the gardens by attacking women. So thank you, Mad Manny, for that on Instagram. Check him out.
Oh, someone sent me because my people have been getting me to do these responses to various various online videos, and someone sent me a video. I didn't know it was yours, and then I heard your voice in the background, and it was you that filmed it, of some insane man allowing a woman to gob in his mouth.
Yes.
Oh my God, that was in Manchester.
Yes. And it was on Market Street, and it was some BDSM, some bondage, sadomasochism, where the man was a beta cuck, and his dominatrix was spitting in his mouth, putting a cigarette on his tongue. He swallowed the cigarette butt, and what I found very fascinating was I arrived as a healthy, normal human being, and she totally respected me and allowed me to film it and answered my questions. And so she was respectful to me as a non-beta male whilst she humiliated the beta male. And I thought it was incredible.
Why would that man want to be humiliated? I mean, like, what the hell's the matter with him? What possible? Yeah. I can only guess it's some sort of strategy that if women feel sorry enough for you, you might get some.
I think the human psyche and consciousness is so complicated that everything has its opposite. Like the matter has antimatter. Scientists are saying that the universe might have the anti-universe, and that might explain dark matter and all these things we can't measure. So maybe people's fetishes is the kind of mirror image of what they want, and then that becomes sexualized. I don't know.
The only thing I can think of is that the only way in a fast enough history ecology that a man can know that a woman will be good genetically and will survive is that if she's quite dominant. And it would therefore make sense that he would be sexually aroused by her being dominant. But then on the other hand, maybe it's like some pathological outbreak of that. So it's that, but to a pathological degree, such that he's feeble and weak and things don't work. I'm going to go to the rest of the questions. Anyway, you voted Labour, L. Taylor, and I can't help that. Sorry about that. Keltadian Chronicles gives £1. Thank you, sir. The Rambling Chipper says Crutchy for party whip.
Oh yes.
Okay. And then JW says £5 super sticker. Thank you, JW. And then Spilfsen says £5 super sticker. Thank you, Spilfsen. And then the Rambling Chipper says, I say, old boy, what? How about a slice of deer and cockerel flan, gaffor? Thank you, the Rambling Chipper. That's most kind of you. Nathan Stern says, Am Yisrael Chai, God save the king. Let's hope for some good results for Reform UK. Indeed, I'm Chai. That's fine.
Yeah, all good. So we're not far away now from the exit poll. 13 minutes.
The exit poll's at 10. The exit poll's at 10. We've got 12 minutes till the exit poll, and we'll see what happens. I've got it on in the background, so I know how to get to it. Reform, fake YouTuber says reform is containment. Immigration is the only policy that matters. 90% of people want less immigrants, and no party will allow that. Well, they're saying they'll allow that. Who can tell? That's the one thing they're standing on is lower immigration. So I don't know about that. And then L. Taylor says, did you not get the joke? No. I'm very naive. If you tell me that you voted Labour, I'm going to believe that. So
sarcasm doesn't translate through text. It doesn't have an intonation. It's hard.
No, the way that you can do sarcasm is if you've done like a smiley face emoticon, or like quote like that, or I think then you.
My wife's boyfriend is that? Yeah, Laura's telling me he mentioned my wife's boyfriend, so it's like, yeah, Labour like cucking. Thank you, Laura's on the ball, finger on the pulse of slangy internet culture. So that's cool. So
Yeah.
where's Ed disappeared? He's gone into
Well,
the black void.
my children keep running down and switching the light on in this room to annoy me.
I see. You got to keep the void going behind you. It's a nice contrast between
I
your
know. Well, it
nice,
doesn't seem to matter. It's so black, but
your
it's
pallid
fine.
Anglo face and then that nice void behind you. It's like you're in outer space without a spacesuit.
I don't like it though. I think it's a bit blue. I wonder if I can turn up the orange. I've noticed on this, there's orange and there's blue. Right?
On the light, yeah, a little bit orange might give you a bit of color. Like, look how orange my surroundings are here. Look at that orange light, orange furniture, slightly creamy background.
And then,
Someone's asking, someone with a spicy name asking me if I was ever the boy in the barrel. No, but my dad, he has to. My dad was in the Merchant Navy, and he told me the story of Boy in the Barrel, and he always looked a bit ashamed. So I'm sure my dad at one point was Boy in the Barrel. So
what is Boy in the Barrel? I don't know that story.
Oh, in the Navy back in the day, obviously there'd be no women on the ship for months on end. So they'd all get drunk and then draw short straws to see who would be the person that was naked inside the barrel, all lubed up with a small hole in the side. So they'd shut the boy in the barrel, or the man, and then everyone on the ship would relieve themselves inside that barrel, inside the boy, and then no one would know who was doing who at what time, and then they'd let him out, and that would be it. So Boy in the Barrel, it's an old Navy story.
Gosh, ShinZ138 says, "Take my money before Labour give it to the crackies." Well, thank you very much. $4.99. That's very kind of you, sir. And then Kit says, "I'm a teacher. I have had pupils come up to me and say they feel ashamed to be white because we had segregation and blacks sitting at the back of buses. The history teaching is so bad. This is so bad. British pupils think the US race problems happened here." Oh God, yeah. Well, that's They take the blame. It wasn't even all of America. It was just the southern states. So nobody from the north, to the extent that we should feel guilt, then it shouldn't even be people from the north.
It all stems from political correctness being people who are terrified of what would happen, of what they tell the truth. And rather than ever admit that maybe people from different parts of the world have different abilities, they will always try and twist it round to, well, obviously white people are racist and evil, and that's the kind of narrative we're trying to fight with voting for reform.
You're not evil. If I tell you, Kit, you're not evil. Everything important in the world has basically been invented by British people. There's a few exceptions, few French things, a few German things, but it's basically British. Electricity, which we're using now, British people. The computer, which I'm using now, British people. It's British people. So there's nothing to feel bad about. You're a genius people. And if you're America, you're basically Britain West.
Absolutely. Britain West colony.
Everything that matters, British people. And there are a few exceptions, a few things that French people, German people did, but basically it's British people. This is just the way it is. We should accept our genius.
Absolutely. I was discussing this with Laura today, like the British dominating in the world in invention and empire and spreading democracy and good vibes and banning slavery, which is very noble of us. It's because we don't have very severe sweltering summers in Britain. And on the continent, they've got sweltering summers for 3 months of the year. Before air conditioning, it was too warm to be bothered to do anything. Whereas here, you could work hard all summer. It's 15 degrees Celsius all day in June, and there you go. You can work.
It's really hot, then you can't cope with the heat, so you have to get black people.
Yeah, you get turned into a lazy bastard. You want to just sit by the river and drink wine.
I think you say that, but if that's the case, then why is it that Singapore, which is really hot, but is composed of people who are evolved to a place that is cold, i.e., China, and then look what they've done in Singapore.
I think I reckon it kicked off with the advent of air conditioning. I'd say there's a direct positive correlation between the advent of air conditioning in the early 20th century and the Singaporean miracle.
Yes, possibly. I know that before they had air conditioning in the deep south, they used to have a net above the table, and then there'd be little black boys in the net with feathers on sticks, and they'd fan them.
Yeah, like in India. Yeah, like in the kind of like halls in India, like a little boy, the little chai boy would sell tea and
that happened to me in India. Me and my wife were there in 2007 in July, and we got to a temple we wanted to go to, but it had closed for a couple of hours because it was the middle of the day. And we were sitting there on this bench outside the temple, and this little girl comes up to us with a big load of feathers on a stick and starts fanning us. So of
Very
course
nice.
I gave her about a quid.
Very
They're very industrious.
Mhm.
They're always finding ways to make. I like that. I mean, how many English kids living on council estates that are complaining about the cost of living crisis go out and find people that are hot in the street in like Rotherham and fan
Yeah,
them? Like
exactly.
no one.
No, they just sit there begging, or like, they go up to cars now. Like, one thing we didn't have in Britain until the last few years was third worlders begging at traffic lights, so going car to car and tapping windows. And I used to only
Oh,
see that in Brazil. Yeah, I used to see that in Brazil as a kid, and you'd have to try to not get shot as well at the red lights. But it's sad seeing it in Manchester and London, and even Edinburgh. I've seen it. People begging at the lights. Ed, it's not nice.
I've not seen that. I've not seen that. But the thing is, I don't carry cash. I only carry my card. So
Yeah,
unless they're beggars that have a card reading machine, there's no
yeah,
way they're getting any money out of me. But I saw it in India, and often to make them better beggars, they do things like when they're a child, they cut one of their legs off or blind
yeah.
them, and then they people are more sympathetic, and so then they give them money. And if you don't give them money, as happened to me in India many times, they give you the evil eye.
Yeah.
Ah,
Oh,
and
yeah,
there's a photo that I've got somewhere which was taken in India, in Delhi, and there was this boy who I refused money to, and then my wife was taking a photo of me, and you can see this boy in the background staring
yeah.
in
Oh,
an
yeah.
evil way,
And it's
and
cursed you to this day,
it's
clearly.
cursed me, and they believe in the power of the curse. So it's like the opposite of the placebo effect. It's the nocebo effect. Like bad
Yeah,
things, if you believe in it. Like there was this case in Pendle in 1610 or something of this little girl from a family of witches that believed they were witches, and she cursed this guy, and he believed in witches, and he had a stroke.
there you go. And that's literally
Died.
5 miles from where I'm sat. Pendle Hill, the town of
Yeah.
Pendle, is 5 miles from where I'm sat right
The
now. So no, very,
Pendle
very
witch
relevant
trials.
story.
It's very famous. It's about
Yeah,
1610. There are all these people. They were those cunning folk, and they genuinely believed it. People believed in the power of the witch. These people believed they were witches, and they would use the magical powers to curse you. Right, I'll keep my eye on the clock, chaps. So it's exit poll imminent. Exit poll in about 4 minutes. So I'm watching the Sky. If you're tuned in, there's that.
yeah. Is Andy Burnham still on the Sky one? Is it?
Andy Burnham and that conservative lesbian woman Ruth Davison, and then that woman
Oh,
with all the
yeah.
plastic
Oh,
surgery.
yeah, that little short-haired one, that little
Yeah,
short-haired
yeah, her.
lady.
And then the plastic surgery bird, Kay Burley, is that her name?
Hey,
And then the
Burley, yeah.
weird sort of goblin woman with the deep voice, Beth Rigby, I think her name is. And then there's with the sort of like she talks like she's deaf or something. She's got this strange speech impediment. And there's
Yeah.
some bald black fellow. I can't see who that is. Probably that Trevor Phillips. I can't see who it is.
Should I put it on my TV as well? Or like,
Yeah,
how should I do
put
it?
it on. So when it
Oh,
comes
yeah,
in,
yeah.
we
And
can
also, people were complimenting my Batman themed kind of happy pants, my kind of house lace pants. So I'll show them again. Let everyone enjoy. Show off.
Oh
There
yes,
you, there
Batman.
you
It's
go.
like child pajamas. Child
Yeah,
pajamas.
lovely. I'm 43 years old. Let me find the remote control. Oh, I know. You know what? You know what?
What?
I've lost the remote control. I
Oh, he's
remember
lost.
this.
Don't worry. I
Yeah.
have it here.
Go on.
I have it here. When I did this in 2019, Woodley
I
didn't
lost
have
it.
it
I
either.
lost it.
So I and then his
You've
dad.
got it.
Played
Yeah, if you can.
I've got it. It's imminent. It's about to happen. So Kay Burley is pulling a facial expression to the extent that you can with this kind of level of plastic surgery.
That Botox, you can't do it. She can't.
Yeah, that rude bird on Sky TV. And then the other one, the Goblin woman. I walked past her in the street when I was last in London. Actually, I was in London, man. I walked past this Beth Rigby woman.
Oh, yeah?
I was walking down Whitehall, Pall Mall or whatever it was, and about 1 minute 45. So it's coming. It's in 2019. It was so exciting. There was this feeling I wanted the Conservatives to get as many seats as possible. Now I want them to get as few as possible as a punishment for what they didn't do between 2019 and now. As a punishment. Yeah, you can tell she's got that pout of plastic surgery, this bird.
Yeah.
It's not pleasant to look at. Anyway, 1 minute and 22 seconds. So it's all counting down, chaps. So get ready. And
Yeah, I'm gonna get it on my phone.
Tvoi var detta, synd att alla found this. And then we can
better not
tune
slow
in.
down. I'm on a countryside connection here. It better not affect my.
Well, I just have the connection that I have in Olu, where for some reason.
Here we go. I see them. I see them. Is that Beth Rigby, the short-haired, dark brunette?
Yeah.
The chubby one. Here we go. Here we go. Oh wait, they're going to go to an advert.
It's imminent. It's about to happen.
Oh my god!
I think I'd like to hear their surprise.
There you go.
I can't.
Oh shit! Have you got a similar number?
It hasn't come up yet on me. Wait, are you ahead of me? I'm just watching it live. 32 seconds. So chaps,
I'm ahead of you. Look, I'm ahead of you.
I'm going to say Conservatives 100. Well, have you got the numbers?
No. I'm about 5 seconds ahead of you.
I'm going to say Conservatives 120. That's my guess.
Here we go.
Okay, here we go. For polls person 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 6, 5, 4. Don't tell me.
Oh, look at that. 13 from the
Don't tell me. I'm about to see it.
There you go.
100. I said 130. It's 131. Yes, I was one off.
Did you say 130?
But they're predicting 13 seats for Reform.
Yeah.
Oh,
look
wow.
At that. That's interesting. That's interesting, eh?
I said 130.
Look at that, everyone. Look at that.
Off. Oh,
very interesting.
Goodness. Okay. 13
there you
for
go.
Reform.
Yeah.
That is way more than I anticipated.
So would you call that a Labour supermajority?
And for the SNP, they are absolutely buggered. That's like a collapse. Remember, they got 57 seats in 2015. Labour
they're buggered.
They're out. They're finished. No independents. So Conservatives are the opposition. Probably might get a few more or a few less than that. 13 for Reform, though. That's surprising, isn't it? That's everybody was predicting that they'll just get a couple of seats or whatever. So, wow. Okay, chaps. Well, this is exciting stuff. Now, as you know, I'm going on the old, in an hour, what's it now, midnight in Finland. I'm going to be on the old Lotus Eaters. So I'll see you on there. I'm gonna do it. I've told my wife because I flew back from Bulgaria, overnight flight. I wasn't able to sleep on the flight because they didn't turn the light off because they're bastards. And so I'm completely buggered. I woke up today at about 2. So my body clock is screwed, and I've agreed with my wife that it's okay to do this. It's all very exciting. This is like 97. 97 was the first. You didn't know? 97 was the first election I stayed up for. I stayed up until about 4:30 in the morning, which would be 6:30 in Finland.
My goodness.
And then with Brexit, I was so convinced. With 2015, I stayed up a bit. 2017 was boring. I went to bed. 2019 stayed up a bit. And then referendum, I was so convinced we'd lose, I went to bed, and then I got up and I had a fascinating surprise. So, all right, chaps. Well, good luck, everybody. This has all gone swimmingly, and thank you for the 2,000 or so that have tuned in. And I will see you all soon. Goodbye.